Hello, and welcome to today's discussion on helping Canadians to get active. I'm Kevin Kennedy, co-founder of Cross the Line Active. And over the next 15-20 minutes, I'll be chatting with my guest, David Willows. David is the Executive Vice President, Digital Innovation and Brand Experience at Green Shield Canada. Hello, and welcome, David.
Hi, Kevin. Thanks for inviting me here today.
No problem at all. It's an absolute pleasure chatting with you. So I'm going to start off the interview by just asking for an overview of what it is that you do with Green Shield Canada and also your background. How did you come to this place in your life?
Sure. This should be the easiest question. Let's see how I do. So I've been in the health benefits and health consulting business, and I hate to say this, probably for about 30 years now. I wished it was 10 years ago. I say, oh, I've been doing this about 20 years now. The three number is in there, which is quite humbling. But I have a background in working at Canadian insurance companies in things like disability management. So that's, obviously trying to support folks who have fallen on hard times with some physical and mental hardships and trying to help them rehabilitate and get back to work. That was maybe my first 15 years or so. The last 15 years or so, I sort of broadened that reach to look at sort of all matters of sort of health promotion, health management, and moving from sort of looking at sort of a population that's already in sort of dire straits in terms of disability to really thinking about how can we keep people healthier, and they can have fewer interactions with companies like ours, with claims and such. Not that we don't want to administer those claims, that is our job, but certainly we would like to have a healthier population that has fewer health challenges.
Okay, so I think I understand in principle, but could you perhaps, for some of the listeners, myself included, really, that to help us understand what that could mean on a day-to-day basis?
So this long title that you made fun of before we got on air, digital, innovation and brand experience. So digital is really a team of folks trying to build up sort of the online user experience for plan members of Green Shield Canada. So a lot of plan members from Green Shield Canada have insurance coverage through their employer. A lot of us have that in our lives, and we help administer those. We have plan members who have bought insurance from us sort of directly because they don't have a group insurance plan like that. And I've got a team of people that build the digital interfaces. And as I'll talk about later, one of the big things we're trying to build out right now is how to get more organizations like yours, for instance, online and accessible to Canadian consumers, Canadian patients, through our help. And through even the platforms that we have that are traditionally used for making a claim or checking what's in your benefits plan, how can we also, through that same process, get them access to some of these emerging digital health technologies? The innovation team is really part of that as well, sort of connecting with organizations like yours. I think that has happened in our recent history, where you're now sort of living on our website because of sort of the groundwork that some of our team members did. And the brand experience side of this job is really a fancy word for marketing and communications. So I also have the team that tries to tell the stories about the things we're doing, like I've just described, but also try to motivate GSC plan members to look at some of these new services and to try them out over time.
Okay, great. So I think I understand. Let's dive into today's topic, which is helping Canadians to get more active. And let's take a bit of a step back so that, well, I have a few questions for you, but the first one takes a bit of a step back in trying to understand the motivation. And forgive me for being this at the most primitive sort of level, but I want to understand why it is important for Green Shield Canada to support the health and well-being of their plan members. Why is it important to you?
And even at the most primitive level, I'm not going to lead with sort of the business reasons why we do this. I'm going to talk a bit of our history, and we're celebrating our 65th anniversary this year. And interestingly, we were founded by pharmacists, and that's something most people would not know. We weren't founded by sort of venture capitalists looking to build a huge insurance company. And sort of from the early days, while we were certainly building our capabilities in benefits administration and adjudicating and paying claims and helping people understand the benefits they have through their insurance plans, there has always been sort of this thread that runs through our history of also trying to improve the healthcare experience that these people have, and to bring innovation and try to sort of prompt the broader healthcare system to think about things a little bit differently as well. The pharmacists that founded Green Shield Canada noticed, and this is sort of in a sort of a post-war, post-World War II era, where people didn't have employee benefits like they have today, and they had patients who couldn't afford to get prescription drugs. And they came up with the idea of, hey, you can sort of have an insurance plan with a card that will tell pharmacists, I can do this. So that was sort of one of the first innovations. We all take it for granted now. And although we go digital now, it may not be in our wallets. There's something in your system that says, hey, I'm this person, I belong to this insurance company. And these health services and prescription drugs start flowing. And so we were at the forefront of that.
Okay, great. I'm following you completely, because at the start of our journey, we found that most people were aware that there's a need for healthier lifestyle choices. I mean, years ago, much of the focus was very much upon educating people on the needs of those benefits of being more active, the physiological, the mental, the social, even the practical. Why should I? How's it going to help me? But it's great that the topic of conversation is shifting more towards the exciting part, which is the doing, the actually getting some innovative stuff out there. So it leads me on to my next question to you, which is, can you tell me some of the initiatives that you talked about, the measures that you're taking to make your plan members, to help them get more active?
Yeah. I mean, if I was to be honest about sort of the industry that I'm in, money can be made and businesses sustained just by paying health claims, right? Like by letting people be unhealthy to some degree, different extents of that in every individual, and have them submit their claims to us, and we churn through those claims, and we get paid to do that. I think we've always taken this extra interest in more proactive healthcare, because of that sort of the roots in healthcare itself and healthcare provision. And some of the things that we have done as first in the industry, we started a smoking cessation program and told employers, hey, you should have this in your health benefits plan, because the logic is just so overwhelming that, one of the worst sort of causes of health struggles in Canadians, and certainly, it's declining over time, I think, as smoking rates go down. But certainly when we put this out 20 or 30 years ago, a lot of people smoked. And if you want to, make their lives better and make them healthier, we want them to help them stop smoking. And just from a business standpoint, if you're an employer and you're paying ultimately for health claims, you want people to quit smoking as well, because they're driving up your costs. Right? They are the unhealthier people and driving up your costs. A few years later, we were the first insurance company to help reimburse people like pharmacists and dietitians to coach people. And some of that coaching was around services that you have sort of started offering now, which is to help people get active. Certainly when pharmacists were talking to people with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, part of that conversation was around activity. Some of it's obviously around medication, some of it's around diet, but should have changes in lifestyle. And we were one of the first to say, again, Canadian employers, we think it makes sense for you to fund this, because the ultimate end goal is to have healthier populations who are going to be happier and more productive, but also cost you less money in your health plan. So those are some of the historical things we did even 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, even before we got into the digital landscape we're talking about now.
It seems so logical from my non-industry perspective that keeping people really healthy leads to the best results for everyone. It's less claims, it's less hardship, and so on and so forth. But there's a real practical element to this. Now, I don't think that the masses are steering away from this en masse because it's the wrong thing to do. But I just think that there are some genuine obstacles, reasons why we don't go down that proactive route. So I put the question to you. I'm sure you will have encountered some obstacles to these initiatives that you're rolling out, because if not, everyone would be doing it. Do you know what I mean? It's the right thing to do. So can you talk me through some of those obstacles, and also add in sort of how you've handled them, and how you're handling them on an ongoing basis?
Yeah. I mean, if I look at a macro level at the Canadian healthcare system, our greatest success historically, I think, has been dealing with sort of acute care. We are not an instinctively proactive healthcare system, right? We wait for people to get sick and then we jump into action. So I don't think this is probably a new topic for you, but we have not been good as a country at health promotion and funding avenues for people to get educated and to have access to things that will help them get healthier in the first place and stave off inevitable diseases that happen throughout life. So I just think the system has not been historically built for this. Inside my little bubble, in the health benefits world, we've had a situation, I would say, over the last 10 or 20 years where we've started to recognize that more and more, but it seems like the agenda had already been set in terms of this is the standard health benefits plan that Canadian employers are going to give to Canadian employees. And it was not that sort of proactive, how do we keep them healthy lens that it went through. It's like, what are people's health expenses? What happens when they get sick? Can we help them get through that process? And that's what insurance is for. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. We all need insurance in our life because there can be some catastrophic situations, which can really throw you for a loop. But it was never about, hey, how do we get services in front of them and maybe fund them so they never get sick in the first place? But once that sort of the die was cast, and this is what benefit plans were, people are very stubborn about change, and especially when it comes to healthcare. And I think most employers were afraid we can never take anything away, and we don't have enough money in our minds to add new modalities and proactive healthcare. So it was always a very tough road to try to convince employers, no, trust us, 5 or 10 years down the road, this proactive view of keeping people healthy will save you money. But in the meantime, you're going to spend more. And there's like, how about you try this with some other employers out there and tell us how it goes? But right now we're tapped out. We don't have the budget for this. So it was always tough to get sort of new ideas, new concept, this proactive healthcare into benefit plans. And, I think Canadians have been slow to try new things. Like you and I, I'm sure, are going to talk about sort of the digital landscape now, and you do your work online. We're trying to convince people to go online. We certainly were on the online health bandwagon earlier than most, and trying to convince both employers and individual consumers to do it. We didn't have a lot of luck, say 4 or 5 years ago, because it was, again, that thing is, our employees like what they've got, and this is interesting stuff. We'll see how it emerges. But then this thing happened. It was called a pandemic.
Yeah.
And suddenly we got a lot of callbacks on those ideas we were talking about. And it's a terrible joke to say, did the Canadian healthcare system need a crisis to force it to change? But we just had a crisis, and we're still living through it to some degree right now. And I just think the interest in online modalities, realizing that, how do I fit this into my life? And this is one of the big things I think about the work that you do. How do Canadians find time in very busy lives to take time for themselves, to get more active, to get more fit? We keep making it easier and easier for them to do that. Apologize if that phone rang through.
No.
That's the beauty of Zoom podcasts.
I didn't hear a thing.
Okay, good. It was ringing very loudly in my ear. But yeah, so I think really sort of that next wave, and this is probably what we're going to talk about to end, is sort of what can we do to make healthcare more efficient, more convenient, more cost effective. I think a lot of that is through digital modalities. And maybe the time has come where people are more interested in trying new things, curious about what's out there, through a period where they were almost forced to go digital to get some of the care they needed.
I tend to agree with you that you can have the best intentions in the world, but if the momentum shift isn't going in that direction, no matter how much sense it makes, it's just not going to happen. And if there is anything good that comes from this horrific pandemic, it is opening people's eyes to different ways of doing things, to different solutions. And the digital, the online platform, we feel that at CTL Active, we feel that that opens a whole set of doors, because we have three principles for. We, like you, want to encourage people to become more active, right? Now, by any means necessary. But we feel that we can achieve that by attacking three main areas. Now, that's regardless of these areas, and regardless of what the activity is, the exercise, the goal. The three areas that we want to tick before we even roll anything out is: one, we want to appeal to a wider audience. So gone are the days that it's the seasoned athlete or gym bunny that goes down all the time, and everyone is going for that same person to get them to come to your venue or your activity, etc. This is now broadening the net to make sure that the people that wouldn't even think of themselves doing this sort of thing are now thinking, well, that's accessible to me. The second is addressing the excuses. Because whether we like to admit it or not, the excuses are there. They're loud and proud in everyone's ears. The reasons why that they're not doing anything, and they're anything from time to equipment to space availability, accessibility, all of these sorts of things. If you don't address it, it's still going to be there and stop and act as an obstacle. So let's address that. And then the third thing is this other thing that I think sometimes we like to think, or the perception is you're weak if you need this, but it's motivation. It's the kick up the butt sometimes that you need to get you over the line to. So if
we've all had gym memberships, right?
Yeah, correct.
They've all expired at some point.
Yeah. And the idea is there and it sounds great and so on, but for whatever reason, life gets in your way or whatever, and the motivation is no longer there. So we feel that if we address those three areas in principle for anything that we're going to do, then we will broaden the horizon, widen the net, and catch more people. End result is more people becoming more active. So that increased activity hopefully leads to lifestyle changes instead of just temporary goals or targets that go up and down, up and down. It's now this is part of my life.
And I think at this point, we've got, we're featuring you in our digital clinic on our corporate website. The next phase is having more employers sort of see that and say, not only can my plan members go there and maybe pay out of their own pocket, but should we consider this to be sort of employed inside our benefit plans themselves? Should we make that investment on their behalf? And I think that's sort of a lot of the conversations we're trying to have in that community.
Yes, and I applaud your efforts because, of course, selfishly from our perspective, it would be nice for all the business to come through us. But we are genuine believers that if we can encourage more people to become more active, then the awareness is there, and we'll survive in the long term because of that. We'll thrive in that sort of environment rather than funneling everything through or one solution to absolutely everyone, which people have choice now. So
grow your diverse audience. Absolutely.
So could you explain what your long-term vision is for promoting these healthy activity services through Green Shield Canada?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've taken sort of baby steps along the way, and we are, making very serious strides in trying to bring together a larger number of virtual health solutions. So we personally have made investments in online mental health, and we've driven some partnerships in telemedicine and e-pharmacy. Right now, we are dreaming of ways to sort of make them much more interconnected they are right now, rather than sort of point solutions. And then sort of that next level we're looking at is how can we also build into what we're calling sort of a digital health ecosystem, organizations like yours, organizations that have sort of disparate, when we think of chronic pain, we think of sleep disorders, we think of online exercise. How can we bring this all together in a much larger multidisciplinary clinic, all online? We see them in our neighborhoods with, sort of on corners, large buildings with all sorts of different medical specialties in there. We're trying to figure out how do we make them more interconnected online. People can navigate them. They can move from telemedicine to exercise, and just sort of make that more seamless, rather than I have to go research all of these things one by one and have sort of different memberships one by one. Can we bring it all together in the future? And that's sort of what keeps us up at night right now, and we're sort of starting a journey to try to figure that out in the next year or two.
Ah, great. I have every faith that there'll be success in this area. And the good thing is that the motivation is trying to see things from the customer's perspective, so that journey is seamless. It's not, it's not
absolutely.
bitty, it's very fluid. Yeah. So thanks, David. I mean, you've given me some really good insight. I could genuinely talk about this for hours. This is a topic that's very passionate to me. You've got some really interesting stuff going on at Green Shield Canada, and we'll watch this space to see your success in the months and years to come.
Yeah, and we wish you the same success in the journey that you're going on in helping Canadians get healthier.
Oh, thank you. I hope our discussion has gone some way to motivate, inspire other organizations to take some proactive steps to broaden that net, to make sure that more people are getting involved. And maybe you and I can talk again, have a catch up in the future, and go out for a round two.
Okay. Yes. Yes, we're allowed to now, I think. Yeah, that's going to be good. Great.
So
look forward to it.
Thank you ever so much for your time, and I will see you again.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin.
All right. Bye-bye.